So the director of the CDC has suggested that actually maybe you don't need to wear a mask when you're outside.
Do you think that if you are outside and not close to people, you still need to wear a mask?
You know, this is a question that we're looking at. One of the things I think that's really important to understand is while there's wonderful news and we're getting more and more people vaccinated every single day, we still had 57,000 cases of COVID yesterday. We still had 733 deaths. And so while we are really trying to scale up vaccination, we have this complex message that we still have hotspots in this country, and we will be looking at the outdoor masking question.
What liars these people are. It's a really simple question. Should I wear a mask outside? Does it actually work? This has been going on for more than a year. We're looking into that, really? And then the lecture about how many people have died, we know that. We can look it up if we want. Vaccine, that's a different question. Does the mask work outside? Answer the question. But they don't. You know the answer. And if you've been suffocating as you're on your bicycle alone or hiking or jogging or playing sports, or if your kid's school has forced them to wear masks while they play soccer, you should be very mad because it was all for naught and it may have hurt them. Today, the New York Times is also conceding that wearing a mask outdoors doesn't really help. Last year, the paper told you you should wear one while you're jogging, alone. But here's what they reported today, quote, there are few, if any, documented cases of brief outdoor interactions leading to COVID transmission. Oh, thanks for telling us. If you're passing other people on a sidewalk or sitting near them on a park bench, the exposure of exhaled particles appears to be too small to lead to infection. It's insanity. Alex Berenson has been on this more doggedly and with more facts than anyone else. He's the author of Unreported Truths About COVID-19 and Lockdowns Part 3, Masks. He joins us to assess this brief window of truth-telling. Alex Berenson, thanks so much for coming on. This seems like a very big question for people who live in this country. I see these desperately sad and afraid people every day on the street wearing masks outside. Now we learn maybe they don't need to. What's the truth?
The truth is, of course, you don't need to wear a mask outside, Tucker. You know, there's basically no evidence of outdoor transmission, and there hasn't been for a year. The Chinese looked at this more than a year ago. I tweeted a study that they'd put out that was basically the first and last word on this. They found almost no outdoor transmission. And, this should be obvious to anybody with a brain, right? This virus is airborne, and it blows away in any kind of outdoor, weather. And by the way, it doesn't like sunlight either. So there's lots of reasons to believe that masking outdoors is useless. Look, the thing that Unreported Truths 3, what the booklet actually says, is that masking indoors is probably useless too, because when there is virus around, a mask does very little to protect you. So it's useless in that way too. Now, if you wear an N95 respirator, if you're going to be one of those people who decides you should have medical grade equipment, you're going to walk around and live your life that way, maybe you have a little bit of extra protection inside. It's still equally useless outside though.
You're presenting this as, of course, you're more rooted in the data on this than probably anyone in the world, anyone I've ever met anyway. So it's obvious to you. But the question remains, because so many millions of Americans have been suffering under this outdoor mask regime, and I think it's very clear hurting themselves physically by doing it, why haven't the health authorities told us what you just said?
Well, I think, that's a really good question. And I went back and looked the other day at what was being said in February 2020 about masks and what was being said in April 2020 about masks. And as you may remember, there was a complete reversal in the month of March 2020. And, that was later explained, in February of 2020, masks were useless. And CNN actually published a source saying you're scared if you buy masks. Unless you're Chinese and sending them back to China, in which case you're doing something nice for your family. That was very weird. It was in the same story, those two statements. Meanwhile, in April 2020, everyone has to wear a mask. And the explanation that was given was, well, we needed to make sure there were enough masks for healthcare workers because they actually needed them. So what that actually says is we were lying to you in February 2020 and we're telling you the truth now. The alternative explanation is we were telling you the truth in February 2020 and we're lying to you now because this is performative and masks are scary and a sign that this is something you need to be scared of, the coronavirus, even if you personally are at very, very little risk. I personally think that the real explanation is the second one, that masks were sort of seized on as a symbol that this is dangerous and we're going to get everybody convinced that it's dangerous.
A sign of obedience. This much dishonesty will have massive and devastating consequences for the country. You can't.
It is right now, Tucker. People are very nervous about the vaccine, and why shouldn't they be after the lies and the elisions and all the stuff that they've been told in the last year?
It's not our fault, it's theirs. That is exactly right. Alex Berenson, thank you for your bravery on this and
thanks,
your
Tucker.
precision.